Alright guys, so today the WWE 2K25 roster reveal has finally come out. It has dropped. We've been waiting for this for a long time. We've gotten drip feed, we've gotten trickles, we've gotten a little bit of a roster reveal over time, but nothing really shocking. They've just basically been telling us Roman Reigns is in the game. Seth Rollins is in the game. The Undertaker, who has been in literally every WWE video game that has ever been made, is going to be in the game. I can't believe this. But today, we finally have the full roster reveal. I'm going to be going through the video here. I'm going to be reacting to it as it goes along. I've already given this a look. I know it moves by pretty quick, so I'm not going to make comments on everybody. But people I find interesting, maybe I can pause the video, talk about them a little longer. But I want to point out a lot of the interesting additions, a lot of the surprises, maybe talk about some omissions, and then at the end I want to talk what I think is coming in terms of DLC, because that's still left up to speculation. We don't have a DLC reveal yet, we don't know who's in, we don't know who's out, so let's get this thing started, and let's watch along. This is the IGN FanFest roster reveal that they did today. Kicks things off with AJ Styles. Follows up with Akam, who I want to talk about, because the AOP was recently released. We didn't know if they were going to make the game, but they're in, which is nice for me because I like AOP. I like Akam and Razor. We see Andrade here has already been confirmed. Alundra Blaze has been confirmed. Andre Chase we see returning again. Andre the Giant. A lot of the expected additions. Angelo Dawkins, updated render image, could be updated in game. But AOP being in is what I'm really excited about, because they haven't been in since 2K20. So it's nice to see them again in there. We see Austin Theory a second ago. That's one of my guys. Batista, Becky Lynch, Berto, Bianca Belair. A lot of people you expect to see in here. Good to see Big E and Boogeyman back. Booker T is a frequent occurrence. I think he's been in every single one since, like, WWE 12, if I'm not mistaken. He's been back for. As we're moving along here, we're getting through the B's. Brooks Jensen back. Sean Spears is in as well, who's been confirmed. We'll see him a little bit later on. I wonder if we're going to have Brooks Jensen updated in his gimmick that he has with Sean Spears these days. We got Carmelo Hayes, Chad Gable, Channing Stax Lorenzo, Charlie Dempsey. No, that's a new addition. Charlie Dempsey's exciting. We like to see Charlie Dempsey in here. We haven't seen the rest of his stable mates, but that's not to say that they won't be in later in terms of DLC. It could be possible that we see Tavon Heights or something like that. Coming through, we've got Doink. Now, interestingly enough, they have a render image this time for Doink, and I'm curious as to if they're actually going to have a render image in-game, because he's only been a 3D model for the last few games and the character selection screen, and that bugs me, because he's the only one like it. We saw Duke Hudson a minute ago, who was recently released, but he still made the game. Elektra Lopez is a new addition and also was recently released. We also seen Eddie Thorpe a moment ago, who is worth noting because he's a new addition. Ethan Page, another new addition. Eve Torres returning, which I'm happy about. She's been in it for a couple of years now. You know, I'm hoping that as we stop on Fallon Henley here for a moment, that we see another selection from that time. I'm thinking it's going to be either Kelly Kelly or it's going to be Victoria, because for the last couple of years we got Stacy Keibler, and then we got Eve Torres, and then just in 2K24 we got Michelle McCool. So we've been getting, I guess you could say, a WWE diva from that time period in each game, and I would like to see that a little bit more frequently. So I want to see, my prediction is we're either going to see Victoria or we're going to see Kelly Kelly in this year's game as part of the DLC, which I'll talk about more at the end in terms of my DLC speculation. We continue to go along here. We've got Gunther, Grayson, Harley Race is here. Good to see him back. Now, this is exciting. Head Shrinker Fatu and Samu. I think this is Samu's debut in the series. We got another gimmick for Rakishi in here, and the Samoan Head Shrinkers are in, which is awesome. We also, apparently, we have 3-minute warning coming. Kaku as well, making his return to the series. And Islander Tama, that's the Tonga Kid. I mean, they were not kidding when they were calling this the Bloodline Edition. We don't just have Roman and the Usos and Solo and Jacob and God. We've got, speaking of Jacob, we've got like the whole Bloodline. Everybody. High Chief Peter Maivia we're going to see later. I don't know if Rocky Johnson is in, but here's some new additions. Jada Parker and Jakara Jackson. I know a lot of people are going to be excited to see that because it seems like everybody wanted to see the metaphor, Oro, Jakara, and Lash in the game for a while. And it's exciting that we're finally getting to them. And here we have another new addition who's very exciting. Javon Evans, who I know a lot of people are going to be excited to play as. I wonder what his moveset's going to look like. I bet that he's going to have a lot of new moves added to the game that are dedicated specifically to him, because he's got moves in his moveset, that's right, CM Punk, moveset, that nobody else does in the world. So it's going to be very exciting to play as Javon Evans. I know he's going to be a big fan favorite for a lot of people enjoying this game. We've got Jey Uso coming in here as well. Of course, Jim the Anvil Neidhart returning to the series yet again. Jimmy Uso. They've always been split apart by at least one character. And here's John Cena. I love this. John Cena just takes up the whole damn screen. He doesn't get a little card like everybody else. It's just boom, John Cena. That's what you get. I love it. Who doesn't love John Cena? We got Johnny Gargano here. Johnny Gargano. Josh Briggs making his return. Julius Creed. Kairi Sane back in. Kane. Classic Kane. We love Kane. Karrion Kross. Now, interestingly, this is an updated render of Kross with hair. With long hair. The Kross that we got in 2K23, full disclosure, was already outdated in 2K23. But it was okay, because we didn't really get that, short hair, jacket return, hourglass on the ring apron, Karrion Kross represented in a game. He had moved on from that look a little bit. He had continued to grow his hair out, but it was nice to see it represented. But it was already outdated by the time 2K23 was out. They didn't update it for 2K24. So Karrion Kross had just about the most outdated model in the game, I think beaten only by Trick Williams, who was another one who was outdated by the time he was added to 2K23, and they didn't update for whatever reason, even though he was like NXT champion shortly thereafter the game came out, or maybe even beforehand. I'd have to double check. But I'm hoping we have an updated Kross, considering the fact that AOP has made the game, and they didn't appear in WWE since their return prior to joining the Final Testament. Surely they're all going to be in their Final Testament gimmick, which means surely Karrion Kross is updated. However, stranger things have happened. WWE 2K and Visual Concepts have surprised us with weirder decisions before. Who knows? Maybe it's going to be 2K23 Kross once again. But hopefully we get Kross with his new hair. Katana Chance, Caden Carter, I'm very happy to see them back. Kalani Jordan, who's an exciting new addition. Ken Shamrock returns. Kevin Nash. A lot of great legends in this game. Kiana James, who I believe is making her debut to the series. Kit Wilson, I love Pretty Deadly. I've been playing with them a lot since they were added in 2K23. LA Knight confirmed. Kurt Angle, happy to see Backlash Legend, the other half of the Metaphor Girls. Lexus King, an exciting new addition. Can't wait to see him and his beard in the game. Liv Morgan, Logan Paul, a classic. I love Logan Paul. Lola Vice is in. She's a new addition as well. A lot of new additions, a lot of new NXT additions. Lyra Valkyria, Women's Intercontinental Champion, returning here. We got Maurice, Maxine Dupree. I love playing as Maxine. I'm glad to see Michelle McCool back. She's an exciting one to play as well. Now, interestingly enough, they used Molly Holly's blonde hair in the picture that they chose for this render. So I'm curious, because for the last couple of years, Molly Holly has had her short hair. I'm not sure we even got a younger Molly model in 2K24. I know we did in 2K23. I think at 2K24 it was just Modern Molly and Modern Mighty Molly. So I'm curious as to if we're going to get a retro Molly with the blonde hair, just because of the images they chose. They don't always choose images that line up with the model in game, but it's worth noting. It's worth noting. We move along here. We got Montez. Mosh, we see the Headbangers returning. That's exciting. Got Naomi, Natalia, Nathan Frazier returning. Nia Jackson, Nikita Lyons, two of my all-time favorites. Noam Dar, I'm happy to see. Oh, and here we go. That's what I want to talk about. Big man, Oba Femi. I am very excited that we finally got Oba Femi in the game. They're moving along. Oro Mensa to finish off Metaphor. Otis. Pat McAfee returning without all of his stupid idiot friends. Thank goodness. And there you go. Peter Maivia, who I mentioned earlier, is going to be returning. Piper Niven, R-Truth, Randy Orton, Randy Savage, a lot of long-time regulars to the series. Razor Ramon, Raquel Rodriguez, who I'm hoping is in her updated Judgment Day attire. Razor, the other side of the AOP. Rhea Ripley, who we've seen lots of. She looks great this year, by the way. Her model is phenomenal. I mean, if it looks anything like she does, of course it's going to be phenomenal. There's Ridge Holland, who I'm sure we're all excited to play as. Everybody cares about Ridge Holland. Roddy Piper, Roman Reigns, and Rosie, his brother. Both brothers next to each other in the list. Isn't that nice? Isn't that kind of cool? Scarlet, who's back as a playable character yet again. Happy to see that. BFAB also was in earlier. I failed to mention her, but BFAB is going to be playable for the first time this year, which is nice. Sean Spears returning to the series for the first time since I want to say 2K19 with his Ty Dillinger gimmick. Sol Ruka making a debut in the series, so I'm very excited to see. I definitely want to play as Sol Ruka. I hope there's a lot of different Soul Snatchers in the game because that would be exciting. Tamatonga, very exciting. Tamina makes it into the roster as well. Now she has a Legends background, so I think Tamina is finished with the company, but she's in as part of the Bloodline story, I am sure. The Rock as well, updated for the first time. Thea Hale, one of my favorites, is back. Thrasher, the other side of the headbangers. Tiffany Stratton, another one of my favorites. And Tonga Loa, the greatest wrestler of all time. Thank goodness he has made the game. There we see Trick Williams go by, Triple H, Trish Stratus. I'm hoping Trick is updated this year. Tyler Breeze, again, for some reason. He just can't stop showing up. Umaga, The Undertaker, Vader. Another good few of my favorites to play. Valhalla's still in, which we haven't seen her in a while. Wade Barrett. I wonder if they're going to update Wade Barrett. Wendy Chu, Wesley, offense. Sika, the Wild Samoans coming in to finish off. We got so many Bloodline people. So many. Too many. Some might say too many. Xavier Woods, Yokozuna. And we're going to finish things off with Zelina Vega, Zoe Stark, and, of course, that's the end of the list. But I want to say, we have an interesting situation here. There were a few people left off the list. But they have a little bit of an also included section at the end. Not sure why we went this route, but I'm assuming it's for a couple of reasons. We're going to notice here that Alexa Bliss is in this list. I'm assuming she hasn't been updated from her 2K24 appearance. So because her gimmick is outdated, they probably didn't want to show her off. Or maybe they just wanted to pick somebody that they could use a picture of for this, so they didn't have to throw a picture of a release superstar up there or reuse something, because we're going to see basically a list of releases. We're going to see the Wyatt 6 in here because of the pre-order bonus. I'm assuming maybe they're not necessarily on card per se, or maybe they just didn't want to use their images, or maybe you don't unlock them unless it's a pre-order bonus, but I wouldn't imagine that they'd be listed here if they're not unlocked base. Maybe it's old gimmick Dexter Loomis and Joe Gacy and Nikki Cross are in here. Perhaps. I'm not entirely sure. It's yet to be seen, but as we go through here, we're going to see a list of surprises, in my opinion. I think a lot of surprises here. So as we come down here, we see a list of Alexa Bliss, who, like I said, I assume is going to be not updated. That's probably why she's in here. But I'm very surprised to see Baron Corbin has made the list. Baron Corbin was released a while ago, but Baron Corbin made the game. The man is infallible. He's unstoppable. Baron Corbin, he's been in the game for 10 years now. 2K16 to 2K25, without break, without interruption, without intermission. This man is unstoppable, and he's back again. We've got Blair Davenport, who made it after being released. Now, I assumed a lot of this recent batch of releases, which was Blair Davenport, Cedric Alexander, Sonya Deville, Giovanni Vinci, Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, AOP, Isla Dawn, and Indy... No, not Indy Hartwell. She was before. I assumed all those people were going to make the game again. But I did not think that Corbin and Indy were going to be in. But as we come down to the bottom of the list here, we see that Isla has made it in, who I'm not surprised to see. But Indy has made it in, who I am, because she was released a while back. So I'm very happy to see that Indy Hartwell has made the list. And then they also include Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. I'm assuming maybe because Hunter Hearst Helmsley has been like a My Faction unlockable or something for the last couple of years, something in that capacity. Maybe he's in the game, but there's something you got to do to unlock him, and that's why he's in here. Maybe the same is true for Hollywood Hulk Hogan, or maybe they're just including a couple of different gimmicks in here, because as you'll see on the next screen here, which we'll let play through, you see all these names come down. We see two things. Number one, we do see some variants of people who are already in the game. So we see Mighty Molly, Rocky Maivia, Stardust, and The Fiend, which of course are variants of Molly Holly, The Rock, Cody Rhodes, and Bray Wyatt, respectively. And then it says plus many more variants at the bottom. So what I'm assuming is they didn't include, like they didn't show Kane and Kane 08. They didn't show the 75 different John Cenas or the 32 different Hulk Hogans or the 5 different Roman Reigns that are going to be in the game. I'm assuming that's why, we have a couple of alternate gimmicks listed here just to tell you that, yes, they're going to be in here, and plus many more variants at the end. Now we have the manager screen come up, which is exciting to see. Next up, we've got Ava, Adam Pearce, Afa, who I'm assuming is going to be, if he's a non-playable manager, maybe it'll be like an elderly Afa. I think Sika might come up on the next list, because there are 2 lists of this here. It's alphabetical, so maybe Afa and Sika are going to be in from the Roman Reigns and Jey Uso Tribal Chief match from, I believe, 2021. I imagine that's why they're in here as managers as well. That's what we'll be seeing. In my prediction, I don't know if that's the truth, but I imagine that's the case. As we see here, we've got a couple of new additions in Armando Estrada, who I'm very excited to see. We've got Bobby the Brain Heenan returning. Brother Love, I think, for the first time in quite some time. And Captain Lou Albano, who's very exciting to see, included Kathy Kelly and Jimmy Hart back again, which is also good to see. And on the next screen here, as it shuffles through, we got a nice picture of Paul Heyman. And then we've got a list of Mick Foley, Miss Elizabeth, Nick Aldis, Paul Bearer, Paul Ellering, Paul Heyman, Stephanie McMahon, and Theodore Long. Now, I noticed Sika isn't here. So, could be wrong about that. Maybe. I don't know. But this is basically a list of a lot of the guys who have been in here for the last couple of games. And I'm also excited to see Paul Ellering, which means the Final Testament is in. I know I'm probably the only person excited for that, but boy, am I. And there we go. We've got a nice clip at the end of the pre-order bonus, which is the Wyatt 6. And now we're going to move on to the next segment that I wanted to talk about, which is speculative DLC. Who could be in as DLC? Of course, there's going to be a lot of names who come up. The first group is the Motor City Machine Guns. They've been here for a little while. I don't remember exactly when they debuted. Perhaps I should have had some notes up for that. But they've been in long enough where I think they'll be in as DLC. I mean, they've already been WWE Tag Team Champions once. It would not surprise me in the slightest to see them again. As well as that, we've also got Penta. I think Penta is probably the biggest talking point because I know everybody's going to want to see Penta, but the reality is he debuted in January. Like, he did not debut very long ago, and he came in about 2 months before the game came out, and you know how 2K likes to be. They really like to have about a year or so before they put the people in the game. Like, the cutoff is typically the previous year's WrestleMania. Penta is well after that cutoff. But I think, and this is my prediction, that Penta is such a popular character right now and is so marketable. They know it's going to sell. They know Penta in the game is going to sell. And because of that, they're going to crunch to get him into the game. He'll probably be a late DLC, but we saw the precedent set last year where the DLCs expanded out as far as November. So if that's a trend to follow, we could definitely see a DLC pack coming out this November of 2025 that could include characters like Penta. So I think they're going to do something like that where they're really going to try to get him in the game, but I wouldn't anticipate him being anything other than like a final DLC edition. That would be my assumption. In addition to Penta, of course, the big 3 women from NXT that everybody was talking about that were signed, of course, Julia, Stephanie Vaquer, and Zarya. Again, I definitely think they're going to be in the game, and I think they're going to be DLC. I don't know if they're going to be an early or a late pack. We saw last year with the Global Superstars pack, which had basically everybody people actually wanted to play as. You know, Dragon Lee, Nia Jax. It had Carlito. It had Lyra Valkyria, and it had Jade Cargill in there. But that was a relatively late-stage DLC. It could be a late-stage DLC, but I would absolutely assume to see those 3 women in the game. It would be very surprising to me if they don't make it. Speaking of new additions to NXT, Jordynne Grace. Jordynne Grace just debuted at the Rumble. She had made several appearances for WWE before, but it was while she was still contracted to TNA. So I don't know if we're going to see Jordynne Grace in the game. I would not get my hopes up. I think that she's going to be one that I at least would assume will not be making this year's game. I think that she'll be in 2K26 for sure, but I don't think that she's going to make the cut for 2K25. I mean, look at it last year. Andrade wasn't in. A number of other superstars who maybe could have made it weren't in. I think it's a similar situation to that. Last year, Andrade came back at the Rumble. This year, Jordynne Grace debuted at the Rumble. Andrade was not in 2K24. I don't think Jordynne Grace will be in 2K25, but I'd love to be proven wrong because I'd love to have her in the game. In addition to that, there's also another couple of characters potentially in NXT we could see. You know, there's definitely a lot on the roster who could be included. Of course, we do have the other members of Charlie Dempsey's stable, the No Quarter Catch crew, which we could be seeing brought in. That includes Tavon Heights, that includes Ren Sinclair. It wouldn't surprise me to see them in. It also wouldn't surprise me to see them left off, just because I feel like there's a few other characters in NXT that are going to be higher priority than that. There's a number of women who I think would make the cut. For example, Adriana Rizzo, I think, could make the cut for DLC. And in addition to that, I would not be surprised to see Luca Cristofino put in alongside of her, because that would round out the families faction. And of course, Tony D'Angelo being the North American champion right now, they're kind of a big deal in NXT. It wouldn't surprise me to see them included. And there's a lot of other women that I would like to see included from NXT as well, who have yet to be confirmed for the game, but would not shock me for DLC. Of course, Jasmine Nix, which is the other part of Fatal Influence. She is the third member. Has yet to be confirmed for the game. Wouldn't surprise me to see her in. A couple of other women would be Izzy Dame and Carmen Petrovic. They've been around for a while. They've been featured fairly heavily on NXTs of late. It wouldn't surprise me to see one or both of those two women eyed up for DLC. We also have Ariana Grace, who is Miss NXT. Would not surprise me to see her in. And, you know, there's a number of other NXT characters that could make it too. I mean, OTM was not confirmed. Wouldn't shock me to see them in some form of DLC pack. And there's a number of other NXT characters. You know, it's really up for grabs with who may or may not be in with that. We've seen some interesting inclusions before, like in 2K23. I thought it was impressive that Damon Kemp made the cut because he was relatively new at that point. So we could see something like that. We could see a very surprising addition. From NXT, we might not see any. Who knows what they're going to do? But another hot topic in terms of DLC for this year is a potential TNA DLC pack. I know it's something everybody wants to see. WWE and TNA recently entered an agreement where they were going to trade talent back and forth between primarily NXT and TNA, but of course we also saw Joe Hendry show up in the Royal Rumble, who was TNA World Champion at the time, still is at the recording of this video. So it's possible. I'll say it's possible, but I would not get my hopes up. I really would not assume that Joe Hendry is going to be in the game. I wouldn't get my hopes up. Maybe Joe Hendry. And it's possible they could do Nick Nemeth because, I mean, his character model's already in the game. Personally, what would make 2K25 the best game of all time for me is if they got AJ Francis in there, because Top Dollar was in 2K23. He was one of my absolute favorites to play, and he was gone by 2K24. If we do a TNA pack, I want to see him in. They already have his character model. They just have to update his clothes. They could do that. They could get AJ Francis. They could put Dolph Ziggler / Nick Nemeth in there. They already have his character model. And there's a number of other interesting characters in TNA. Of course, Moose, everybody's excited by. Masha Slamovich, the current TNA Knockouts champion. And one of my personal favorites would be Steph DeLander. I'd love to see her involved. However, my overall assumption, my guess on a TNA DLC pack would be no. I don't think it's going to happen. If we see anybody, potentially we could see Joe Hendry added. And maybe if all the stars align, that would come with a TNA World Heavyweight Championship being added to the game. Possibly. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I wouldn't get my hopes up. That's what I would say about a TNA DLC. I wouldn't get my hopes up. But never say never. Nothing's impossible. All that to say, the last thing to speculate on DLC is who are the legends going to be that are included this year. I haven't seen too much in terms of new action figures coming out. That's normally an indicator of who might be in the DLC, because that means somebody signed a merchandising deal. You know, WWE's handing out these nostalgia contracts to everybody now. That's what brought us the Dudley Boys and characters like that in the last game, and Sandman. We could see some new legends. I don't know. I really don't have any guesses at the minute. But the only thing that I would speculate on is I think we're going to get at least one new woman from probably that 2001 to 2010 time span. And if I had to put money on it, I would say we're going to see either Victoria or Kelly Kelly being added to the game, I think. And it's possible as well, actually. I believe that Jacqueline recently signed one of those nostalgia deals with WWE. I would have to double check on that because I'm not 100% sure. But she's been in the games before. We saw her in, I believe it was 2K17. And I think she stuck around maybe for 2K19. I think she was gone by 20. It's possible that we see her back. It's possible. She could be an addition. But that's really all I got at the minute in terms of legends, who could be in. But I definitely think I have a very sneaking suspicion that we're going to see either Kelly Kelly or Victoria, because Victoria has one of those nostalgia contracts. And just recently, there was a trading card released of Kelly Kelly through Topps, which has an official partnership with WWE, which means there's some sort of merchandising deal in the works with Kelly Kelly. So that is my roundup for the WWE 2K25 roster reveal and my speculation on the DLC. Of course, we haven't gotten any information yet on who is or is not in the DLCs. I'm sure in the coming weeks we'll get something. They typically put out one of those teasers. They've been doing that for the last couple of years where there's hints as to who is going to be included. I'm sure we'll be seeing one of those prior to the game's release. But until that time, of course, WWE 2K25 will be out on the 7th of March for those of us who have purchased the Deadman Edition or the Bloodline Edition, which are the expanded deluxe editions of the game. And for those of us purchasing Standard, it'll be out 1 week later on March 14th, which interestingly enough is earlier than the typical early access is. Typically, the early access for the last couple of years has been about 3 days. This time, it's a whole week of early access. So I guess a little bit more incentive to get you to shell out the extra change and buy those big editions. But, I think personally it's worth it to get the Bloodline edition because Tonga Loa is on the cover. And as much as it's about $200 to buy, I'll pay any price to get Tonga Loa on the cover of my video game. So to round things off, that is the WWE 2K25 roster reveal for the day. That is my speculation on DLC. That's my review. That's my opinions. And I'll be back for some more talk about WWE 2K25. Thanks for watching.